It was our year-end issue of Business Week, so a time to reflect. Certainly a great year for tech. One of the interesting moments from this summer was when the five most valuable companies in the world by market cap were the five big tech companies. And that lasted about 7 weeks, but a little window into the future where tech dominates everything. And then you mentioned a couple of the tremendous breakthroughs, also Google's AlphaGo beating human players in the game Go, the Uber driverless cars. I mean, if there was a theme, it was artificial intelligence moving out of the lab into people's homes, the Amazon Echo, and I don't think we've yet grappled with the impact of it, right? I mean, it will be tremendously disruptive. It will amplify our lives. It could take some jobs as well. And then, of course, the year ends with the election of Donald Trump, which of course takes Silicon Valley tremendously by surprise because it was very vocally in the corner of Hillary Clinton.
Talking about something that's still going to be grappled with. What I think is also so fascinating here, though, is, and it's going to be the discourse, I think, for the whole of 2017, kicking off at Davos, is what is the responsibility of these tech giants now?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what Bob thinks, but there's a kind of philosophy in Silicon Valley of neutrality, right? We're platforms, we let all traffic is equal, and if things are engaging, well, great, you know, we're here to serve our users. And that just doesn't fly anymore. We've seen it with Facebook and fake news, with Google and spam, and I kind of write in the article, tech companies have to take a stand, not only be the arbiter of the bits on their networks, but in these political questions. Will they build a Muslim registry? They're so big now that they can't kind of skate on their neutrality.
Yeah, no, I mean, and these are all great issues, you know, and you have to start thinking as well about the implications of what it is that you do. A lot of the effort, the implication has only been about how do I make more money, which is, look, we're in business, that's fine, that makes sense, but some of the implications of some of these more larger socioeconomic type changes, because that's what many of these things are. They're not just technology. This influences all of society. What are the impacts of that? As you said, what are the implications of those? How do jobs get affected? How can also technology be applied to areas perhaps it hasn't been looked at, right? I mean, a shared dog walking service, okay, yeah, that's interesting for like 0.05% of the world, but things that help with agriculture and healthcare and some of these other areas, I think, that haven't really been looked at by a lot of the tech firms, I think that's going to be critically important. And taking a stand and trying to address some of those issues, I think, is part of the problem.
For me, I think it's what will investors demand. It's going to be fascinating because until now it's don't be evil, but will investors start to say, look, it's part of your corporate responsibility and I will invest only in companies that take on the responsibility?
That would be wonderful, but as we know, investors by and large, you know, they're worried about the next quarter. Right. And it's fun. It's interesting. There has been a sort of reevaluation in Silicon Valley. How do we organize our companies for the long-term benefit? And obviously, you've got the example of Amazon and of these founder-led companies like Google and Facebook that have been able to insulate them a little bit themselves from the market, but not everybody can do that. And so you've got efforts like a company we wrote about earlier in the year, the Long-Term Stock Exchange, to try to create a whole new set of rules for companies to orient themselves towards the public good and not just for what investors want in the next quarter. Yeah,
and there are funds that are, of course, that have been specialized in companies that do good work.
Social impact.
Yeah, social impact. Those kinds of things have been a play. But as Brad said, they're not a huge piece of the overall puzzle. I mean, you know, I think another big question we have to consider is going to be around, again, the value that you can provide to areas outside of tech. There have been some principles that I think have been driven tech that I think have to be questioned. Crowdsourcing has been considered sort of the ultimate way. We've talked about if it's popular, then that's sort of a crowdsourced thing, then therefore that should win. Well, that's not always the best case. And so I think some of those core basic principles have to be reconsidered as well.